Okay, here we go. Welcome back. We've got a Nashville resident, Clay Travis. Actually, you're Nashville. You're national now. I don't even know how you found time to fit this one in your schedule.
I mean, every day is kind of a zoo, but yeah, I mean, you've been here. My wife came down in 2001.
Yeah.
I feel like you're around that same time.
Yeah, well, exactly, 2001.
And so 20 years of Nashville is kind of wild to think about, right? How much different this city was.
And that's what we were just talking about. But
yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. Appreciate it, by the way. Yeah.
That's what we were just talking about, is just how crazy Nashville has been the last 5 years. And just
I was thinking, you remember, because I think you were I was in law school.
Yep.
And you were coming into Vanderbilt to play quarterback.
Yeah.
And I remember when the tin roof opened, right, on Demumbrian. And I know you spent a lot of time there over the years,
Jason,
too.
Do you know Jason Shear?
Oh, yeah.
You know he works with us now.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
So Jason's working with us now.
So he was doing, the last time I saw Jason, he was doing, and this has probably been a year and a half ago, and I still want to watch it, a documentary on Henry and the Seahawks.
He's doing it. I think they're finishing it up now. You did.
I was one of the speakers or whatever on the interviewed on that, because that place was, to me, such a personification of Nashville kind of starting to take off.
Yeah.
But at that point in time, everybody would end up at the same bar. Now there's 100 places where you might go, right? So
many places now. It's so different. I mean, like you said, it's changed so much. The hotels, the restaurants, the bar scene.
It's a totally different world.
It really is. And I don't know if it's good or bad.
It's one of those things that I think about it. I know you got kids too, from the perspective of sports. It's kind of amazing for my boys, right? They can go to Titans. Yep. They can go watch the Preds. Now we got a soccer team. I hope we get a baseball team at some point. Fingers crossed.
Yes.
But even back in when I was a kid, it wasn't that way at all.
No.
But I want Nashville to still have the same kind of flavor that it's had historically, and that's my only concern is whether that's going to get altered in some way by the new arrivals.
I lived in Chicago for a long time, and you still felt that, that sense of community in that small town. It didn't feel like in New York or LA.
Right.
It still felt like a manageable city, and I feel like Nashville still feels very manageable.
We live close to each other now, and I think we live in the best part of one of the best cities in America, right?
I agree with that.
And so. I love it. I mean, you could live anywhere, we could live anywhere. And I just don't think there's a better place, even still. But it is kind of wild to think about back in those days when you had an empty, parking lot across the street from the tin roof. Yes. Nobody had Uber or Lyft, so you had to go in on cabs or you would leave a car parked overnight there or whatever the choice was. And I've just been in that place so many times. And when you start talking about 2001, I remember that, and then I remember actually, I don't know if somebody's brought this up with you in a long time. I remember when you first got to Vanderbilt, you were ripping a phone off of a.
That was year 2.
And you got tackled by a Vanderbilt cop.
Didn't get tackled. We just got to a point. I was like, all right, we can talk about this.
So I remember that being in the Vanderbilt Hustler.
Yeah.
And because I was in law school at the same time.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh, man, if Vanderbilt cops are chasing down Jay Cutler, I'm not as optimistic about his escapability in SEC games as
we got problems.
Yeah. It's remember you see the video of, I'm sure you did at some point, I was out on Dixon Street, and it reminded me, did you see the video of Baker Mayfield getting wrecked at the University of Arkansas out in Fayetteville?
Yeah.
And that year, Arkansas couldn't stop anybody on defense. That's probably the best hit that happened in Fayetteville was that cop making a tackle on Baker.
Very true. So, you grew up in where'd you go to high school?
I went to the smart kids school. I went to public school K through 12. And I grew up in Goodlettsville.
Okay.
So, not the rich part of Nashville for people who are not familiar. North Side.
Yep.
I would have gone to a school called Hunter's Lane if I had gone to my zone school. Instead, I went to Martin Luther King, which is on 17th and Joe Johnson, right downtown, basically. So that was grades 7 to 12. And that got me a scholarship to go away to college in D.C. at George Washington. And then I came back to go to Vanderbilt for law school.
Did you know you wanted to be a lawyer kind of growing up? How did that...
I didn't. There were no lawyers in my family.
Yeah.
And I really liked, I've always been kind of intellectually curious.
Yeah.
So I liked learning new things. And, I was kind of one of those kids who went to law school not really knowing what lawyers made or what the job of a lawyer was like, but just enjoying the process of learning how the legal system worked.
Yeah.
And I loved law school. And pretty soon, once I started practicing law, I was like, I'm not sure this is for me. And by the way, I was getting to practice. I moved to the Caribbean.
Really? Yeah, I was about to say, you lived down there for
a couple of years. Yeah, I got married.
How the hell did that happen?
Managing partner, a guy named Chad Messier, who's still a good friend of mine to this day, was a Vanderbilt law grad. And they advertised jobs, remote jobs to alums. Yeah. And I saw the list, and I was like, St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. Like I'm a flip-flops and shorts and T-shirt kind of guy. Like that's what I would wear most days. And so we were getting married. My wife was at Vanderbilt Law too, and we had the choice. Hey, do we want to? I was either going to stay in Nashville, which I knew, or we were like, hey, we don't have any kids, we don't have any responsibilities. What if we just went to the Caribbean?
Sure.
So I'm still licensed down there. I took the bar exam. I practiced for a couple of years, so it wasn't a bad place to be by any stretch of the imagination, but it just felt slow moving to me.
Sure.
And I didn't
everything down there is slow moving.
Yeah. But then on top of that, you move the law process. I was a litigator.
I can't imagine how slow the law process
takes years for cases to resolve themselves. Yeah. And I just wasn't wasn't excited about the idea of doing that for the rest of my life. Like, there are worse jobs. So, I mean, I could have been fine as a lawyer, but I started writing online about SEC football primarily. Yep. In 2004, I was just a big college football fan, and that led to writing, which led to radio, which led to TV, and then starting my own company and having some success.
So you met your wife at
law school? Yeah. She might be the hottest Vanderbilt law student of all time. She might be watching this, so give her props. I actually met her. We were recruiting the co-ed softball team. For intramurals at Vanderbilt Law School. They used to have all the fields right by the old rec center.
Oh, yeah.
And my categorization for talent had nothing to do with whether they'd ever played softball before.
Absolutely not.
And we were recruiting the best-looking softball team for co-ed softball that we could. And so I literally met her, pitching her on the idea of being on the co-ed softball team. And so from that, we ended up dating, and now we got 3 kids.
I mean, worked out.
It worked out well. Yeah. Worked out well for me. And she then became a Titans cheerleader, which is probably not an overlap that happens very often. Vanderbilt Law School, Titans cheerleader.
Very few of those.
Very few of those. And we ended up getting married when we were graduating from law school.
That's amazing. It's hard to imagine, but spring is already here. And as the beautiful weather starts to turn up, you need to get your lawn back. Thankfully, Sunday gets your lawn growing and helps to keep it healthy all season long. You probably heard about Sunday or have seen their ads online. There's a reason they are featured everywhere and doing it better than traditional lawn care services. These services lay down 90 million pounds of pesticides each year, but not Sunday. They're different. They're on a mission to change how people care for their lawns. If you've neglected your lawn all winter, Sunday takes all the work out of it, so you can get back to growing a beautiful lawn without guesswork or the nasty chemicals. Their custom plans include fertilizer and everything you need to easily care for your lawn. You just attach the ready-to-use pouch to a garden hose and spray. It takes less than 15 minutes, and it really works. And Sunday is offering our listeners 20% off. Full season plans start at just $129, and you can get 20% off at checkout when you visit getsunday.com/uncut. That's 20% off your custom plan at getsunday.com/uncut. So you're down in the Caribbean, you're probably, you're bored as hell, and you're like, let me just start, because, I mean, CBS Sports didn't pay you, right?
Yeah, for a long time. Yeah. So I actually, I don't know if you know this story, so NFL Sunday Ticket didn't exist in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
You went on a pudding thing.
So that's where I started writing online. I was protesting. The only games we got were whatever the national games that would air on CBS and Fox were.
The 2 games.
Yep. Yeah. And usually down there you'd get the Giants and the Jets because they have the large connection of New York. There's a lot of people who go back and forth between New York. Yeah. Sometimes you get the Dolphins. And so I went on. I started writing online about that, kind of how ridiculous it was that it didn't exist. And then that led into, I said what I had kind of a quarter-life crisis where I thought, hey, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life.
So what are you, like, late 20s at this
25.
Point? Yeah, early 20s? Or mid 20s?
25, 26.
Yeah.
And And so that was kind of my escape, my pursuit of sanity.
Sure.
And so I started writing online. My timing was good. This was 04-ish. The internet was not as populated as it is now.
Yes.
Social media didn't exist.
Yep.
Most stuff like spread on the internet then. People weren't texting. It was all spreading from email still. And so that was right when Facebook was starting. There really just was not, it was a different universe. And so I started writing online.
Everyone wasn't a blogger at that
That's
point.
right. There was not as much competition.
Yeah. Wasn't as saturated.
Yeah, and that worked well for me. And then what I did was everybody who invited me ever to come on and talk about one of my articles for radio, sports talk radio, anywhere in the country, I would go.
Yeah.
And
show up.
Just 15 minutes, I realized that I wasn't bad at it.
Yep.
And then that led to here in Nashville, my buddy Chad Withrow, who now works with us at Outkick, we had a one night a week show in like 2007-ish. I moved back to Nashville after a couple years, and we had a one night a week show, and that led to a midday show, and then it led to an afternoon show, all locally for people who are familiar in Nashville with 104.5 The Zone. Then they made an insulting offer to me when my contract came up, and I'd already started Outkick by that point,
sure.
and I was doing Fox Television for college football, and so I walked, and then I ended up going to take a national show, which I did early in the morning for the last 5 or 6 years. So that's kind of the pathway in general.
There's a few other things here in between those. You did the Dixieland Delight book, where
I
you
wrote my
visited
first book.
all 12 SEC schools at the time.
Yep.
And then you were at Deadspin for a minute.
I was. So I was at CBS, and I always think it's interesting. I busted my ass, and I got to the
you're
point.
done at law. You're done with the law at this point.
I was practicing. I was a contract lawyer doing internal investigations, but I was not doing it full time. Kind of as a.
Sure. that was kind of fun though.
Yeah, it was like basically any time I did sexual harassment investigations.
Okay.
So, but every guy would say he never did anything, and you'd go and talk to him and see what the story was.
Sure.
But I was doing that, and I'd worked my way up to where I was making $40,000 writing columns for CBS, from nothing to $40K. I was pretty happy with that.
Was your wife ever like, "Why the hell are you leaving this?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?"
To her credit, she totally bought into the idea of taking this chance and writing the book. And I think she thought that I was pretty talented, and obviously I worked hard at it. It wasn't like I was lazy about it. But I got into $40,000 a year. The Deadspin job came open, and they offered to double my salary. And I went back to CBS, and they said...
this is late 2000. I mean, this is 2008.
This is probably 2008-ish.
Yeah.
And so people forget now, because Deadspin now is like a super serious, like everything sucks in sports website. But in the early days of Deadspin, it was kind of a fun, zany place.
It was super fun.
Where you would go and hang out. And so I went there with the idea of, hey, it's going to be a fun place. It's going to be zany. It's going to be exciting. And obviously the audience was huge. They were super influential.
Yeah, it was like one of the first ones that
really cut through the noise.
Yep.
And you guys probably were reading it in locker rooms and like everything else. Like,
it was them and like Barstool were kind of going at the same time.
And so they were a lot of fun. And I was an editor there, and the guy who ended up getting sued by Hulk Hogan over posting the sex tape. He moved to Gawker.
Yeah,
all the same
under
company.
the same company. Yeah.
AJ DeLoria was my boss.
Wasn't that like a $150 million lawsuit or something crazy?
To bankrupt the company.
Yeah, destroyed him, right?
Yeah. He was my boss, and he and I didn't get along. And so after about 6 months, I left. I wrote another book. This one was about Phil Fulmer's final year at Tennessee. I kind of had an all-access look there. And then I went to work at Fanhouse, because you're jumping around. So I've been at 3 different sports internet sites, CBS, Deadspin, and Fanhouse, which was really big. People maybe not remember it, but it was the front page sports for like MSN.com, which was a big deal back then. And I went to the Auburn-Oregon game, national championship game, the one that Cam won. Came back home, went into Nissan Stadium for a panel discussion on the future of sports media, turned my phone off, which I almost never do. And when I turned it back on, Fanhouse had shut down, and I didn't have a job anymore.
Oh, shit.
So I had built up to the point where I was feeling like, hey, I'm going to have a real go at it. It's 2011. I think about to turn to 2011. I got 2 kids. I had the radio show at that point now in Nashville. But I suddenly went from feeling like I had the world by the tail. I was a national columnist. I was a relatively young guy at 11. What would I have been, like 31 or 32? Yeah. And boom, the rug gets pulled out from underneath my feet. And that's when I ended up starting Outkick.
How'd you go with the name?
When I was writing at CBS, I'd have a public email address, which I still do, and I got familiar with the phrase "Outkick the Coverage," which for football fans, they know that like means when the punter outkicks the coverage that can make the play. But for the Southern colloquial term,
dating.
Yep.
Yes.
So when a guy ends up with a girl that's a lot better looking than he deserves. Which
all guys hope.
Yeah, that's your goal. Your goal is to outkick.
100%.
And so I love that phrase.
Yeah.
And so initially we were outkickthecoverage.com, and then I shortened it to Outkick.
Got it.
Which I would have been outkick.com from the get-go, but I don't know what it means in German. But there was a German website that had outkick.com, and they later emailed me and said, hey, we're shutting this website down. Do you want it? And I was like, yes. And I think I paid $5,000 to get. Yeah, I got lucky.
Hell.
I got lucky to get the and then we could redirect not only to Outkick the Coverage but also to Outkick.
When we've tried to buy on Instagram, we've tried to buy Outsider. 100 times.
And people won't sell it.
No, so it's literally some music guy over in, I think, London or something. Like, it's literally just dead. Like,
yeah, it's frustrating when you have
you don't even use it. So like, why can't you just
allow somebody who actually would use it?
Yeah.
So I got lucky. I think I had emailed them, but it was a German website, and I just said, hey, if you ever decide to put this on the market, I'm in. And at some point, I just got a random email and I bought it, and so, but yeah, that's where the phrase came from.
Oh yeah,
and
that's what I figured it was from. I just didn't know.
I initially sold all the ads myself. I did all the writing. I was kind of a one-man band.
So you were up 24/7.
I worked all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
And then then you started finding writers, finding content, doing the whole thing?
Yeah. And look, I was also doing radio and I was also doing TV, so all those started kind of rolling together. And then sports gambling was always something I loved.
Sure.
And so we, kind of leaned more and more into sports gambling. I've, in the last 4 years, been doing a daily sports gambling show for FS1. And all that just kind of started to feed together.
Sure.
Yeah. But
did you find like going from writing to camera was an easy transition for you? Because I've talked to a lot of the Barstool guys, and I think they did an amazing job of finding talent that can write. That also translates into, it's very rare. It's very, very rare.
Yeah, so the bridge for me was radio. And I actually think they get progressively easier.
Sure.
But you have to be comfortable with people ripping you to shreds cosmetically.
It's going to happen.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think writing is the hardest. I think radio is the second hardest. And I think television, like traditional television, because it tends to have a lot of producers and apparatus around, and people are trying to help you.
Reading a teleprompter,
it gets progressively easier.
Writing is just you writing.
But I had to learn simple things like, I'm not even sure, is this my camera right here? I think it is.
Yeah.
So I'm looking directly into you guys at the camera right now.
Yep.
And if this were me talking to you and you were on the other side of the table and I was just staring at you like I'm staring at you right now, it would make you uncomfortable.
Yep.
So the first few times I did television, I would avert my gaze like every few minutes away from the center camera.
Yeah.
And it's the exact opposite on camera because you look shifty and untrustworthy if you don't stare into the camera.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting across the table from somebody and you stare at them like this, they're like, man, this dude is weird, right?
Or he's way too intense.
Yeah. So you have to learn, there's all these different disciplines. And I remember for radio, I'd go back and listen to myself when I did radio hits. And I use the phrase "you know" all the time.
Oh yeah.
Or like.
Yep.
Because you fill that space and you think to yourself, man, how am I saying "you know" or "right" or "like" all the time?
Oh yeah.
So I would go back almost like it was you're an athlete looking at film, and I would listen to myself and say, okay, let's try to fix some of those tics that make the conversation and the communication not work as well.
I'm sure I have press conferences with me saying "you know" or "like." I mean,
it's a natural thing.
50 times in 4 minutes
that you wouldn't notice until you
get filmed and someone
listen
else,
to yourself and break it down and recognize it. And then I think the other attribute I have is, and I think you have this a lot too, I really don't care what other people think.
Yeah, you're just gonna fire.
I'm just gonna say exactly what I think.
Yeah.
And
I think the thing about you and why it makes you so relatable is like it is relatable. It is common sense. You're saying things that majority of Americans
70% of people agree with almost everything that I say.
Maybe more.
And sometimes it's like 90 and I'm the only person saying it.
Maybe more.
And so you would be amazed, you probably wouldn't be amazed, but just over athletes being able to play.
Yeah.
That's what we started talking all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The number of coaches and administrators and players who were furious at the media saying, oh, it's not safe to play. I mean, football is a dangerous sport, way more dangerous than getting COVID.
Oh,
like not even in the same universe.
No, not at all.
And so the idea that you could go out and destroy each other on a field and then you couldn't shake hands afterward.
You had to put your mask on.
It was just everybody knew what bullshit it was.
Yes.
And so, but so many people were either afraid to say it or I think a lot of these media people believed it.
Which I don't understand either. Like, I mean, some of these people are very smart. So like, it just blows my mind that or maybe they were just afraid to lose their job. Like, I don't know what it was. But some people were very convincing in their belief of mask and COVID and all this stuff. And I'm just like, I don't understand.
I was just so frustrated.
Because the numbers are the numbers.
You can look at the data.
Yeah, it is what it is.
And make a decision.
Yes.
And the idea that we ever disallowed kids to play sports over COVID is still infuriating to me.
I agree. I mean, and also, it really bothers me that we made these elementary school kids wear masks.
I'm still furious. And some kids are still having to do it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's where, I went and talked at the school board, and I remember texting with you last year because I was so angry over it because our kids both go to a similar local school district. And I'm still furious that we ever made them do it.
I know.
I really am.
Yeah. And I agree. Don't underestimate a comfy pair of pajamas. And you can get the softest pajamas imaginable from our friends at Lake Pajamas. Lake Pajamas make PJs for women, men, and kids in all sorts of fabric options. Try their signature 100% Pima cotton that gets softer with every wash. Bamboo, poplin, and more. I've tried the bamboo pants and Pima tees, and they're so soft and easy to sleep in. I love them. My kids do too. Just go to lakepajamas.com and use code J10 for 10% off your purchase. That's lakepajamas.com and use code J10 for 10% off. Limited one-time use per customer. So 2016, how'd you guys become the? You guys are the national Fox Sports radio morning show.
Yeah. So.
I mean, you guys grew really fast, really quickly.
Yeah, I think I work hard, right? I mean that's the integral. No, yeah. I mean that's the integral essence to it, and a lot of people wouldn't get up that early.
Yep.
Who are established in radio, that's a tough slot to fill. And so for 5 years,
very tough slot, and it's a long, like it's a lot of shit in there. Like you got to be ready every single day.
I would go live for 5.5 years solo at 5 a.m. Central Time. So I would be up. So you're watching Monday Night Football, or you're watching Western Conference Finals, NBA, whatever it is. You're up late. You're always tired. I would wake up in the 4 a.m. hour. In Nashville, it's always pitch black.
Right.
Always pitch black.
I mean, this is 5 days a week.
Yeah, Monday to Friday.
I mean, go to dinner, have a couple beers. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you still got to be up.
Always, that's the worst part of it.
Yeah.
It's always in the back of your head.
Yeah.
It'd be Thursday night. You could be out having a good time. You're at dinner.
I gotta cut it short. I gotta go
because it's always in the back of your head. Or you're watching a game and it goes to overtime and it's a great game and you're like, Oh, no, I'm going to get, you're always in your head doing that math of now I'm going to get 4 hours and 30 minutes. And God forbid that you can't fall asleep because then you're looking over your shoulder at whatever the clock is and you're thinking.
Now you got an hour and a half.
And that alarm would go off. And I can't tell you the number of times I would, get out of bed and just think, what the fuck am I doing? Like how? So I did that solo, never missed a day. Took obviously vacation, but never was sick. I don't even know what the policy was if I was ever sick. And that show we had a lot of success. And then they offered me the when Rush died, which has now been a little bit over a year ago now. I think he died in February of 2021. We started that show. We've been on basically a year now. And so I'm on the biggest radio show in the country, noon to 3 Eastern, which is 11 to 2 here where we live. And by the way, funny story, driving into the studio, because I used to go into a downtown, like Music Row, Nashville studio. And, where we live in Franklin, I got stopped a lot, at like 4:15 in the morning by cops. Because first of all, there's not very many people on the roads at 4:15. And second, they would be like, we're thinking maybe you're drunk, right?
What are you finishing? What are you doing here?
Why are you late? And a lot of times the guys, and I have the Franklin police are pretty great, but they would stop me and they'd be like, oh, hey, it's you, Clay, because I'm on at 5 a.m. here in Nashville and they're working late nights and everything else. But the first couple of times I got stopped, because you're going 45 and a 35 or whatever it is. And they were like, man, rough night. I'm like, early morning, and then
they actually in bed at 9.
They come and look at you and they're like, oh, you're dressed to go to work. You're not finishing, you're not coming home from a bar late at night. And so eventually I got a home studio put in, which helped a little bit because my commute that sucked, making that drive.
Yeah, the Franklin Police and the Williamson County Sheriff's Department, they're fabulous.
I love the dudes.
They're
I really
so
do
good.
love them.
I mean, where I live, the Sheriff's Department, they take care of us. They're protective. I mean, they're all the things.
I think they're absolutely fantastic.
I hate any because my dad was in Indiana State Police.
Oh yeah.
For 25
I didn't know
years.
That. Yeah,
for 25 years. So I've always been very pro the police department. So I hate. I want to say I hate what we live in. I just hate where we are with
where police are villains.
Where police, yes, it's not right.
No.
And you look at anywhere in the country where, they're saying, hey, let's put less funds in or let's deactivate
crime rate skyrocket.
It gets out of control
really quickly. I mean, that's what the data reflects.
And a lot of these cops don't want to live in those areas. I mean, and they're scared to do anything because the backlash is going to be losing their job or go to court or something.
No,
crazy.
I love the guys have been phenomenal around Franklin and Williamson County and really just police everywhere. I mean, that's what I hear from because so many of those guys, there was almost no one who would even say, hey, I appreciate the work police do. And so we've got a huge audience in the law enforcement.
Oh,
maybe your dad. Maybe your dad too.
I'm sure you do. I mean, like, why would you not? Like,
I appreciate the work that they do every day, and it's like, you couldn't even. They pulled.
It's
cops,
a shitty job.
They pulled cops off of television because it was too pro cop. I mean, think about how crazy that is.
I don't know how you can be. I mean, you should be pro cop. Like they're here to protect you.
Everybody makes errors, right? Every profession.
There's shitty people in every position.
That's right.
Every profession.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
That's right.
That's the statistics of life.
But the vast majority of cops do an incredible job. We should have a lot more of them.
You could look at any profession: sports, nurses. I mean, drive-through people,
media guys.
I mean, there's shitty people in every profession. There's shitty people in every parts of the world. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, to vilify just one whole group is
and
not.
when we're reaping the whirlwind of that choice now because there are unfortunately murder rates the likes of which many of us have never seen in so many cities all over the country.
I mean, and not many people. I don't think many people know this. I mean, probably people do, but like, you're on Fox News, you're Fox, and so. But like, you're not. I mean, you're a libertarian. Like, you're not a absolute die-hard Republican.
I was a Democrat for.
Yeah. I mean, you voted for Obama.
I voted for Obama.
Yeah.
Yeah, for part of my life because Look, if you had to say in general, if I had to sum up what I believe in general, it's that you should be able to say whatever you want. We shouldn't try to cancel people for what they say.
Sure.
Even people who think that I'm an awful human being and hate everything that I stand for, a lot of those people, if we had a beer, we would actually find that we have
a lot of common ground.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, and what I find, the idea that words are offensive and they have to be the identity politics, the idea that based on what you look like, you have to believe this. And
sure.
I just, what the Democrat Party has become, I despise. And so I'm,
but I mean, I don't think you're aligned with the far right though.
no,
either.
I would look. I'm fine with gay marriage.
So
right?
am I.
For instance.
Yeah. You're probably more socially liberal than you are.
Oh, so look, I believe I want tax rates low. I want people to be able to smoke weed if they want to. I certainly want people to be able to gamble if they want to.
Yeah.
I'm very pro alcohol, and I'm just pro individual freedom in general.
Do whatever
I
you
want
wanna
the
do.
government to have less control over my life in all respects.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's probably the majority of people.
The vast majority of people, I think. And certainly in the world of sports, by the way, we've let like this tiny subset of the woke universe just drive everybody bonkers.
Insane.
And it started in sports to a large extent, but I think it certainly has taken over more and more of the culture in general.
Well, I think that's why you're so popular now, is because, there's a lot of common sense behind what you say and what you.
I like to think that. I also think that there's a lot of people who just respect, even if they disagree, people who say exactly what they think.
Sure.
Charles Barkley had a great phrase. I don't know if you've heard this. So I was out to dinner several years ago with him before I had any kind of national platform, because he's from Alabama, and I've got a bunch of buddies who are good friends with him in Alabama. And I was in media, but he said, Clay, I got this advice for you, because I think Inside the NBA is probably the best studio show that's ever existed in sports, right? And those guys are just supernatural.
Yep.
And what he said was, if you worry about the opinions of people who don't like you, then the people who do like you won't like you anymore.
Makes a ton of sense. That's
right.
That's a great quote.
It's an amazing quote, and it's so true, because I feel like, and the other great example I'll give you is one of the guys
Unless you're just pissing off a shit ton of people, then it might backfire.
But the Jamie Horowitz, who does television, said, "Man, all you guys are way too concerned about what people say about you on Twitter."
Yeah.
And I would say this for anybody who's in the public arena in any way, but also people who are just worried about what their high school classmates are saying, or what he said, you do a television show. It would be super weird if you walked up after you did the television show to everybody on the sidewalk and asked them what they thought of you.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm Clay. What do you think of me?
Yeah.
He said, that's what you do when you dive into your mentions. He said, share whatever your opinion is.
Yeah.
Let people fight over whether they agree or disagree with your opinion. But you, as the opinion person, being concerned about what other people think about your opinion is super weird. And if you take it outside of social media and you did it anywhere else, like if you walked into dinner and you were like, there's 8 people at the dinner table and you didn't know them, you're like, hey, I'm Jay Cutler. What do you think about this interview that I did with Clay Travis? I'm really, really concerned about what you think. Everybody would be like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, why do I care? And so I thought that was good advice too, because it's kind of pathetic when you think about it in that context.
Well, I mean, I think with social media and everything, like everyone is so ego-driven and just scared of what people think.
Yeah. What disappoints me is, and I think we're starting to break out of it because I see what Elon Musk will tweet, and even what Jeff Bezos will tweet. I don't understand why people who have fuck you money are so concerned about what people think about them.
Yeah, it's great.
Right? If you had $1 billion, to me, the best thing about having $1 billion would be no one can ever do, if you live in America. Now, if you're a Russian oligarch, maybe you have to feel differently.
Sure.
But if you live in America,
it doesn't
is that
matter.
Nobody can ever do anything to you.
You can't touch me.
You're protected. So why would you not say exactly what you think?
Because what's it matter?
Who the fuck cares?
Because it's egos.
Because you're worried about getting invited to some, like the right charity event or the right person. Like, I don't care. Like, if I had $1 billion, I'm that way now, and I was that way before I had any money. And now that I've got, money where I could, throw up the peace sign and not have to work anymore if I didn't want to. I've got fuck you money, but the fact that people who really are worth billions of dollars are so concerned about what people say about them never ceases to amaze me.
It doesn't, and majority of them are, which is weird.
Yeah.
Which is very weird.
I don't get it. And so I don't have that gene. My wife says the whatever weird, sort of alchemy I have inside of me is if 10 people say something awful and one person says something nice,
just go with the one.
Remember the one.
Yeah.
And it's, if you think about it from a sports perspective, it's like having that defensive back confidence or quarterback confidence, right? You have to forget immediately whatever just happened and expect that you're going to win the next play.
Yeah, fire the next one off.
And that's kind of that's kind of the perspective that I have.
I love it. Uncut with Jay Cutler is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Most of you listening right now are probably multitasking. Yep, while you're listening to me talk, you're probably also driving, cleaning, exercising, or maybe even grocery shopping. But if you're not in some kind of moving vehicle, there's something else you can be doing right now. Getting an auto quote from Progressive Insurance. It's easy and you can save money by doing it right from your phone. Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average. And auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Discounts for having multiple vehicles on your policy, being a homeowner, and more. So just like your favorite podcast, Progressive will be with you 24/7, 365 days a year, so you're protected no matter what. Multitask right now. Quote your car insurance at Progressive.com to join the over 27 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Companies and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2020 and May 2021. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations. Do you think all the algorithms and how they do Twitter is going to change once Elon takes over?
If Elon buys it, I think it'll change in a hurry. Yeah. And I've already seen it. I don't know if you've noticed it, but on my Twitter feed, the day that Elon was announced to be buying Twitter, all of a sudden I started adding Twitter followers like crazy.
More. Yeah.
So I think they're trying to bury the evidence of how rigged the process was
before
he gets in there. Because when he brings in his engineers and they start looking at
he's going to call them all out.
And so they're trying to cover their tracks by suddenly, I don't know, thousands. I've been on Twitter for a decade. Yeah. And suddenly I'm adding more people in a day than I ever have before. It's not a coincidence.
Hopefully it triggers like everybody. Instagram, like everyone has to figure it out.
I think all of that is bullshit, right? And I think we're underrating, talking about that woke universe. I think there are a lot of people with bot armies that to, I've been through so many times when people said, fire Clay Travis, you got to cancel him. Can you believe he said or did X or Y? I've been through that so many times that it doesn't really register with me. I mean, I'm not worried about it. But those first couple of times when you think, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. Oh yeah. Because you suddenly look at your notifications and 1,000 people have sent you something. Yep. It is an overwhelming feeling. And so I can understand for brands, like let's say you run, I don't know, McDonald's, and all of a sudden there are 1,000 people who have decided that McDonald's is the worst company ever because of X, Y, or Z. They overreact to that, and I think it's oftentimes not real. It's manufactured because people have multiple accounts.
For sure.
But if you suddenly, I think it's also because so many of us are on our phone. Yep. It's coming to your phone. If you were on a laptop and you could be away from your laptop, but when I pick up my phone and I go in and I look at it, and there's tons of people who have got all these different responses that are out there. I mean, dude, I just, one of the things that I do that's considered controversial is I'm like, hey, men should compete against men and women should compete against women. And I'm like, how the fuck is this like people? When you put this out, like they'll be like the controversial Clay Travis, and then I always say, well, what do I believe that's actually that controversial? And that's kind of crazy,
and that's
right?
why I've always followed you. I was like, he's not really saying anything that's that outlandish.
That's what's always amazing to me is that I'm considered so controversial, and it's like, what did he say? Well, he was like, hey, a dude shouldn't swim against a girl. And there's so few people. Everybody agrees with that. Anybody who's ever played sports.
Everybody agrees with it.
Yes. And everybody. So many people are afraid to say it.
There's like a I mean, probably 1% of the population is like, we're against that.
And
like,
the more you've played sports, the more you're in favor of it, because guess what? Men are bigger, stronger, and faster than women. That's no denigration of women, but that's why we separate men and women athletes.
And majority of, I mean, every girl that's played sports is going to be like, it's going to be like,
they understand it.
I agree with this too.
And by the way, if you bust your ass for your entire career to try to excel at something, and then a fucking dude steps in.
6'3" me says, hey, I'm a girl, I want to play. It's like, well, that's not that fair.
No, it defeats the entire purpose.
No.
But so that was like, people were like, oh, that Clay Travis, he's super controversial. You know, he believes that men should compete against men and women should compete against women. Some of the things that I'm considered controversial for truly boggle my mind.
I mean, well, I think the last 4 years has just been a boggle of mind for everybody. At all times. We're just kind of spinning out of control in every regard out there. And it's like, can we just get back to common sense at some point?
And that's what is that's why I took the job that I did. Because one of the big challenges I had to decide was, other than the fact that I had to get up super early in the morning, I love talking about sports every day, right? If you want to sit down and you just wanted to talk, hey, the day we're recording this, I don't know when it's going to go up, but Western Conference Finals starts. Luka and the Mavs are going up against the Warriors, right? Like, I love watching the NBA, the basketball game itself, not the slogans on the back of the jersey or all the politics.
Luka's incredible.
So much fun to watch.
So much fun to watch.
And Steph, and before Clay got injured, the excitement, the way that they run that offense. I could talk for 3 hours, breaking down whatever the biggest sports stories of the day are. But
easily,
at some point, I got over 40 and I got 3 boys, and I sit around and I start to think, well, I've had a pretty good life, but I think, what is my kid's life going to be like? And if we're going to continue down what I consider to be sort of the insane world that we're in, where men can get pregnant and and you can be whatever gender you want for purposes of sports, like, that's not what I believe in. And so those things matter. Like, I'm love for the University of Tennessee, who I grew up a fan of, to win another national title someday. I don't know if it's ever going to happen. You would hate that.
No, I wouldn't hate it. It's fine. I love the head coach over there.
I think Heupel's going to be fun.
He's going to be a ton of fun. I wish Vandy would have got him a couple years ago.
I was a
huge fan of him.
For the Titans. I'm never going to get over that loss to the Bengals in the postseason. But who wins a title, it matters to that team. It doesn't matter. The world doesn't change based on who wins the Super Bowl, right?
Not at all. Zero.
At all. And so it's fun to watch, and I love being a part of sports, but who wins the presidency matters. Who the governor is, I think we've learned.
Matters a lot.
Who's on your freaking school board matters
a lot.
In terms of what your kids are able to do, and in terms of what our country and our state and our cities and all those things. So I like being in the fight, and I wanted to be able to throw as powerful a punches as I could. And that's why I had to say yes to that show.
Yeah, and you're doing it, and I think you're doing a great job of it. Last question, because I know you're busy as hell. Like, where do you see us going in the next 2-3 years as a country? Do you think we get back to even? Do you think we keep down this crazy ass road?
So here's my big.
Are we going to World War III? Like, what's happening here?
First of all, it's like, my phone is sitting here. I feel like when I flip it over and change it while we've been talking, there's almost nothing that could happen that would surprise me.
Zero.
Right? No. And so my thesis is, if COVID hadn't happened, then Trump would have won in 2020 comfortably. Because the only reason he lost, in my opinion, is COVID. Trump wins in 2020, then the Democrats have to go back and recognize that their entire cancel culture, identity politics is a losing proposition. And you played sports. I coach Little League now and everything else. One thing I love about sports is it's clarifying.
Very.
If you get your ass kicked,
that happens,
and your game plan, you executed it perfectly, you probably had a really bad game plan. You got to go back to the drawing board and reassess it and figure out how to win going forward.
I've been there. I walked into a game with a good game plan, got the shit kicked out of us, and
maybe it wasn't as good of a game plan as we thought.
That one sucked. We kicked that one down the road.
So
do better.
Getting your ass kicked in an election is clarifying. We haven't had an ass kicking in an election really in a long time for the presidency, right? And so I think Trump would have kicked the Democrats' ass in 2020, and I think they would have had to go back to the drawing board. And I think one of the things they would have abandoned is identity politics and cancel culture. I think in November of this year, Republicans are going to dominate, and there are going to be some consequences over this masking and COVID policy and everything
Already kind of
else.
heading that way.
Yep. And then I think if the Republicans do a decent job, I think they have the potential for a landslide-ish win in 2024. And then I think the Democrats will have to go back to the drawing board. Because I think they've lost, in my opinion, I understand people disagree, I think Democrats more than Republicans in this insane world have lost their minds. And they're going to have to reacquaint themselves with sanity, right?
Gotcha. Yeah. I lied. Do you think that, I do have another question. Do you think that Trump runs? Do you think it's a good idea for him to run? Do you think DeSantis runs? Do you think that he supports somebody else? Like, where do you think we land there?
I think Trump is going to run.
Yeah.
So I wish that he would have won. My general proposition is you have to be 35 to get elected president.
Yep.
I wish we had an upper age limit. Like, you can't fly an airplane after you're 65 years old.
Is that true?
Yeah. Like, you couldn't
I did not know that.
They have mandatory retirement ages.
So you think we should do like 35 to 65?
I think if we had a 35 to 65 window.
Gotcha.
I wish we had I'd rather have an upper age limit on the president than a lower age limit.
Makes sense.
Because I think, I will vote for Donald Trump in a heartbeat if he's the nominee in 2024.
Because he's going to be what, 70?
78?
Yeah, something like that.
76,
Whatever.
something like that. I'd be super excited to vote for him. I think he'd be infinitely better than Joe Biden. But I think DeSantis is also going to run. So
You think they're going to run against each other?
yeah.
That'd be a tough one.
So I think there's going to be...
I really like DeSantis.
I do too.
I like Trump too, obviously. But I mean, I really like...
And one of the things that I do now with our show is so big, I'm not going to endorse anybody, right?
You shouldn't.
In a primary,
Yeah.
right? Like, let all the voters go out and decide.
Let people decide.
And then once there's a Republican nominee, I'm going to go balls to the wall for whoever that nominee is, because I think there's a decent chance Joe Biden at 78 tries to run again. Kamala Harris would be a disaster. Mayor Pete.
I mean, Hillary might come back.
Hillary might come back. Whoever you plug in my opinion, on the Democrat side,
Michelle Obama might be there.
is going to be way worse than whoever the Republican is.
Yeah. And I mean, if we keep down this, everything's tanking and gas prices are up. I mean, we just talked about
Stock market's down 1,200 points today as we're walking in.
It's like I just don't know how we're going to turn this around. I mean, hopefully
inflation
we do.
is at a 40-year high, and I mean, you and I are fortunate.
Yep.
Like, I don't have to. I've been in a position where I've looked at gas prices and been like, "Oh crap!" Right, in my life, a lot of people.
But we just pay it and walk away.
That's right.
Yeah. There's other people out there going, "Well, I'm just not driving."
I'll give you an example. I was on 96 in Franklin, Tennessee, just south of Nashville, and I pulled in. I don't know who the car was in front of me, but they had only been able to afford 1 gallon. So, gas prices, $4.50 a gallon or whatever it is. 1 gallon, $4.50. Somebody's just got enough money to be able to drive, 40, 50 miles, whatever it is, to get to their job, maybe to get back, trying to get to their paycheck so that they have the money to be able to put more gas. And
which I have a ton of respect for them even trying to do that.
Yeah, I mean, but there's
because most people just don't want to work anymore.
There's so many people out there. Inflation is a tax on people who are the poorest, right? Because if you have to spend every dollar that you make to live, then the price of meat going up 14% hits you. Then gas being at all-time high hits you. That's money that you're taking out of your pocket that you don't have to buy your kid a birthday present or to go watch a movie. And I feel for that in a good way. Look, I mean, my grandfather was an 8th grade dropout who worked at DuPont, which is how I ended up in Nashville.
Oh, wow.
So he came down from coal mines in Kentucky to live in Nashville to work in the DuPont plant, which is how my family ended up being here. So, the opportunity in America is huge. You've gone from an 8th grade dropout to a guy who got to go to law school at Vanderbilt in the space of, a relatively short time in Tennessee and in the country. But those struggles are real, and I feel like the people who are bearing the brunt of Joe Biden doing a bad job are the people that can least afford to bear the brunt of Joe Biden doing a bad job.
Without a doubt.
Right? And it just sucks. Honestly.
Well, shit, we just ended on a
positive.
really sad note.
Positive. Oh, end on a positive note. I'm an optimist.
Yeah.
And I think everybody out there who is like, the world's going to end, all those things. Mm-hmm. We had an election during World War II.
Yep.
We had an election during the Civil War. I mean, literally in the war. Mm-hmm. And we came through those incredible difficulties.
Figured it out.
As bad as things are now for many people, they've been far worse, and we've had bigger challenges. So
Very
I'm
true.
confident that we are going to come out of this stronger and better than we have been before. But the pain in the meantime is tough for a lot of people.
It's very tough. I think the American people will rally, will come together.
I don't think there's any doubt.
We'll figure it out. And
you think the Titans are going to win a Super Bowl in my life?
Not this year. In your life, yes.
I'm not even confident about that anymore.
In your life, 100% yes.
I just want one.
Will they win it this year? They will not win it this year.
No, I do not feel confident about them winning it this year.
I don't know why they traded
A.J. Brown.
Yeah, I mean they didn't want to pay him, but I mean still he's still kind of young.
Super young.
I mean,
and they went with Traylon Burks, who, I've been a Titans fan my whole life. By the way, what do you think? Here's a good question to end on.
Okay.
And I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
What would your life be like if you had gotten drafted by the Titans instead of the Broncos? And how often have you thought about that over the years?
I've thought about it.
What do you think would have happened? So Jay Cutler has this life, which has been a good life, I think you would say.
100%.
Based on being the first-round pick and going to the Denver Broncos. Titans draft you, and what happens?
Love Jeff Fisher. I guess Heimendinger was there, and so he was running kind of the same system I was running in Denver. Defense was good. I mean, I think I would have been around for a long time here.
Way more successful than Vince Young was in that offense.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I mean, that's nothing against Vince. Vince was a good player. Going to Denver, I loved going to Denver because I had Mike Shanahan.
Yeah, Denver's a cool town.
Cool town. Loved everything about it. I think where I didn't potentially mess up is, what was it? 14 or something, 13, 14 like that. I had an opportunity. I was about to be a free agent, and I could have had an opportunity to go to Tennessee
as the free agent
and finish out my career here. And because Dow Loggins was here, who I loved, and they were kind of up and coming. And I could have came here as a free agent, signed, come back kind of home, and played here and played for probably a long time. I mean, that's something that kind of bothers me a little bit. But I met with Jeff. Hell, I met with Jeff like 3 times. Did
you think they were going to draft you?
No, hell no, not
because Bud wanted. I mean, the story for people who are not hardcore sports fans. You, Matt Leinart, and Vince Young were all coming out same draft class. And you were playing at Vanderbilt, which is already in Nashville. And so Titans were replacing McNair.
And so there's a rule that if you're within like 100 or 50 miles, like they can kind of just bring you in as much as you want.
To get to know you because you're considered a close talent.
Yes.
Yep.
And so the first time I went down there, I think they put me on the board for like an hour. I was writing down every play that I know. Norm Chow was there.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was the whole thing. Like Norm wanted Matt, ownership wanted Vince.
Yep.
And then I was just
Who did Fisher want in your mind?
You'd have to ask Jess.
He was playing his cards close to the vest.
Yeah. I don't know who he wanted. So I knew I was the odd man out.
Yeah.
And then I think like the third time I'm down there, I'm like,
you're like, why am I here? Yeah.
Like I'm pissed off. I'm like, you guys aren't drafting me.
Yeah.
Like literally the owner has came out and said
the Titans had the third pick year.
Overall.
Yeah.
Like the owner said he wanted Vince.
Yeah.
Like why the hell are you guys still doing this stuff with me? And Jeff's just like, you're right, we're not drafting you. And I'm like, I'm well aware. So like why am I throwing again down here for the third time?
Yeah.
Why am I writing how to do the, option, speed option to the left for you guys? Like, this is dumb. And he was like, hey, we're just doing our due diligence and all that stuff. So like, can you just don't call me back?
Yeah.
Just don't bring me back down here again. And then, I don't know if this is true or not, but like, come to find out, Mike, because Denver never, ever talked to me. They didn't interview me.
So you were stunned when you got hired by
They didn't do anything. And I guess Mike and Jeff were kind of tight. So like, they were kind of, he was, telling him some stuff. I don't know how true that is. But I knew like there was never, ever a chance that they were going to draft me 3rd overall. I mean, I was from Vandy. I mean, it was just like, sometimes you get into those politics of cover my ass. Like,
right.
If we make this pick and it doesn't work out, everyone's fired. But if we draft Vince, who was,
coming off of the national championship win,
he was everything.
Maybe the greatest performance in college history in that Rose Bowl game.
Yep, very true. If we draft him and it doesn't work, then we can maybe survive that one.
I mean, it is kind of wild to think about how much one draft pick changes the trajectory of so many teams.
And you look at first round quarterbacks, and it's a shit show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the percentage of them making it is 10 years. I mean, making it 10 years or 12 years or 15 years it's not great.
No.
It's not very good at all.
By the way, positive too, I don't know if anybody's ever told you this before. I would guarantee that you are the first quarterback to get divorced and make money in the NFL off the divorce. Has anyone ever told you that before?
No.
Can you think of anyone? I guarantee you, because most guys, they get married and they're like cutting checks and they're like they're done for. I bet you are the first starting quarterback in NFL history to make money on a divorce.
I don't know if what I can say. First of all, I don't know if I made money.
But not to lose basically your ass on a divorce.
We did okay.
I mean, isn't that kind of funny to think about?
It's very
because I know
funny.
you know a bunch of NFL quarterbacks. And you're like, I don't know why you're marrying her. Like in 3 years, she's gonna have half the money that you've been busting your ass for your whole career.
When the settlement came through, I was like, I threw a party. So. I don't recommend divorce for anybody. Let me go ahead and say that. But it worked out. It worked out for Chris and it worked out for me. So it is what it is.
You can cut out whatever you want. I just thought that was funny. I wanted to mention that because I was thinking about it the other day.
No, we can use that. It's true and funny, and so it is what it is.
Well, that's a happier ending than maybe than.
It is a happy ending.
Then the world is coming undone, and we got the worst president ever.
Kristen got what she wanted. I won on the other side of it, so it is what it is. Everybody wins.
It's awesome. I appreciate you having me in. I mean, you guys. Shannon is insanely talented on the business side.
So talented.
Also, a pretty good basketball player.
He's his shot's back now. He was like 10 for. He was like 10 for like 200.
Really?
But it's back now. He's hit 2 game winners this week, so he's back. He's back, feeling good about himself.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. We'll get you on. You came on Clay and Buck show.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate everything you're doing right now. I know a lot of America is behind you, so.
And a lot of America wants me dead. So welcome to modern era.
That's what it is. Cool.
Awesome.
Thanks, bud.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you all.